Hello, everyone. It's Donna Cravata, and we are here again for another installment of the Real 50 Over 50. And we are having some technical difficulties. Let me see if this is going to work. All right, we got it to work. All right, so today we have Rita Ernst with us, and she is a positivity influencer. She owns Ignite Your Extraordinary, an organizational consulting practice emphasizing the convergence of happiness and productivity to create positive, committed, high-performing organizations. She's also an organizational psychologist, and her focus is on igniting positivity at work to improve performance, culture, and well being. She's also the author of Show Up Positive and the leader of the Show Up Positive movement. Welcome, Rita. I'm so happy to have you here today.
I am thrilled to be joining you today, Donna. It's been many months in our journey since we first were introduced to one another, and you invited me to participate in the Real 50 Over 50. And I am thrilled for this conversation.
Me too. Welcome to the Wisdom Revolution. So, we're going to dive right in and we're going to ask you what happened when you turned 50, because I think it's like something physiological happens.
Well, there are tons of physiological things that we can talk about offline when that go on when you turn 50. But for me in turning 50, um, I, I have I've owned my business since 2008, and it is an organizational consulting practice. And I have always run that business as a life work balance. So I'm a mother of two girls. I'm a wife. My family obligation was a priority for a long time in where I balanced my time spent. And owning my own business allowed me to do that. Can I just say, I am over here snapping fingers and cheering on the sidelines for all of you millennial women who are pushing back and changing the way workplaces happen. I still remember when I left my company in 2006, my boss is like, well, why don't you just go part time? And I was like, because there is no part time. Part
No,
time
no,
means you pay me and
I
and
I
I work
also
full time.
I also left my job in 2006, and I was working part-time, and part-time was 50 hours a week. That
Yeah,
I that
it's
I had
just
to lie. I
crazy.
had to lie, and I had to lie. I had to lie.
So I always said, like, when I started my business, I had one client at a time because that's what I could fit into my choices. And my choices were I wanted to be the room parent. I wanted to do all of these things. Well, by the time I got to 50, and I did have my children much later in life. So I have one about to graduate college and one still in high school. But I was rebalancing. So my oldest one was able to drive. And so that meant some freedom from having to drive her to work every day and after school
Mm,
activities and those kinds of things. And so at 50 was this place where I could start to dream about my business and my professional life being a bigger part of my life and who I am, and stepping back into that place and time because my professional work has always given me so much purpose and meaning and value. I never wanted to leave the workplace totally, but I wanted the freedom to allow me to do the things I wanted to do with my family. And so for me at 50, it was this moment where I realized, oh, I can reclaim professional
mm,
Rita again in a different way.
yeah, yeah, I kinda did the same thing. I had my son when I was 38, and, um, you know, when he was 4, I realized I'm never gonna see this child, and it's only me. So, yeah, it's what we have to do, and I agree with you, like, this younger women are just not putting up with that anymore. And it's amazing. And I hope the stories that we share here inspire them even further.
Yeah, so for me, up until 50, most of my work was referral. I didn't
Hmm.
really go out and seek people to hire me. It was, people found me, people recommended me. And so all of a sudden at 50, I was like, well, if I'm ready to do more work, I'm going to have to find more work. And what does that look like? And how do I begin to do the business development and turn on that part of my work? And I was 2 years in on the on-ramp, ready to hit the expressway, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And traffic came to a standstill.
Hmm.
And when that happened, I work. I'm in a co-working space. It's a cultivated co-working space with very good friends of mine. One of whom is a creative, and she said, "Let's give back to all of the small businesses in our community that are struggling." And we started this project that was called the Pivot Project, and that was before everybody glommed onto the word pivot. But we started the Pivot Project, and what we did is we featured local businesses, and we were telling the story about how they were getting creative and finding ways to keep their people employed, to keep the money flowing, even though times were so tough. And I don't think I would have written Show Up Positive had I not had that moment in that project that really deeply got me back into writing. Something that I was writing a blog, which are small nuggets of things, but to really get back into storytelling and weaving things together. And um, we did that project for about 6 months, and I think that really enabled me to be in a place that I needed to be, where I was then in 2022 releasing my first book, which was very exciting.
Yeah. And now, so that was kind of like the birthplace of the cult of showing up positive. Um,
Yes, absolutely.
let's
So,
talk about that.
yeah, so there's the book, Show Up Positive. It was released in June of 22, which meant I was writing it in December of 21. Thank you, Angela, for the congratulations. And in December of 21 and January of 22, I was writing the book, and I hired a publishing house, an independent publishing house, to take me through the process. And I said to her, like, she's like, "Well, when do you want to publish?" And I said, "Well, this is all based on what happened in the pandemic. It's like now or never. Like we got to." And she's like, "Well, if you can get me a book by the end of January, we can publish it in the summer." And I was like, "What?" And so I had a very short window, but it was good. It's good to have good tight deadlines, but I also had this Show Up Positive thing, was just really in on my heart and in my head. So the words just sort of tumbled out of me, and I had tons of client stories, because what happened in the pandemic is that all the negativity that people were starting to experience as they were losing their freedoms, as they were having to change their behaviors, as they were being confined, which can drive anybody crazy, get cabin fever, all of those
And
things.
becoming a teacher.
Yeah, and all of these new obligations and
Yeah.
restrictions, like, it just really messed with what we need, what we know we need as human beings to be happy and thriving in our lives. And so it's not surprising that all of that discontent didn't just stay in one area of our life. It permeated all areas and all relationships in our life, which is why we saw divorce rates spike, all of those kinds of things. And so what happened, I started getting calls from local companies. Again, a lot of them were people who said, "Oh, you should talk to Rita," who were like, "I don't know what happened. We had this awesome workplace and everybody got along and we were all pulling together to make things happen. And now there's so much conflict. There's so much negativity. There's so much dissatisfaction. All people do is complain. They don't want to work. They're always on their phones. All of these. Well, you're covering your face So we're not seeing one another. We're not getting all of those good nonverbal cues. They weren't allowed to sit together and eat anymore.
Mhm.
That people were going out to their cars to eat their lunches. We had to do the social distancing. It was all for a good cause. I'm not one of those people complaining about COVID because we had to learn a lot about something new that
Mhm.
we didn't know. And you can Monday morning quarterback anything to death. I think we made the best choices we could make at the time, but they did have an impact on us as people, as humans, as to what we needed. And so these leaders were like, I don't know how to fix this because I don't know why this is
Mhm.
happening and I don't know what people need. And being a psychologist, I was like, well, I do know what people need. And I do think I know why this is happening. And I do have some ideas around how we get people back. We need to, it's kind of like the train just derailed off the tracks and we got to get it back onto the
Yeah.
track again. And so, but what's so interesting about this in the Show Up Positive book is that we used to always talk about culture inside of companies and employee experience inside of companies as being something that is determined, that is visioned at the top of the organization, and then it filters down
Good. I
through
I
the
wanted to
organization.
talk about this.
And what COVID taught us is that's all bullshit.
Yes.
That what culture is, it's about the everyday experience the people down here are having together. That's what people were judging their workplace on. They weren't judging it on the words on the wall, on the big ideas of the people at the top. They were judging it on the day-to-day interactions that were or were no longer happening between
Mhm.
them and their coworkers, them and their leaders. And so it was this real epiphany to me that culture is not trickle down. It doesn't work just like trickle down economics didn't work.
Yeah, I was
It
just gonna
is
say, I think that was proven in the '80s, wasn't it?
it is grassroots.
Yeah.
It is of the people, by the people, for the
For the
people,
people.
right? That is what culture really needs to be. And so, what that means is you then have to unleash and engage and welcome every person in your organization as an architect of the culture. And
Mhm.
so, this was the message that I wanted to get out. Well, twofold. One is to help leaders and managers understand that the solution isn't them doing something different. They've got to invite and activate their teams to do something different. The second thing is if you are working for an unenlightened leader, I'm so sorry for you. There are many of them out there, but you do not have to be their victim. You do not have to wait for them to get their head out of the sand and figure this out. You can start creating the culture that you want with your team, with your coworkers. And sort of the short handle of that is just be the coworker you wish you had. So when everything went sideways and people started saying, well, that Donna, she's a troublemaker. She never wants to help out. She always takes the easy tasks and leaves the rest of us to do all the heavy lifting, and she's so this and she's so that. And they're yapping at management. They're complaining at their management. Fix it, fix it. You need to fix Donna. Don't talk to me about what I need to do differently till you go over there and fix Donna because Donna's 10 times worse than I am. What people are actually saying is Donna's in charge of my behavior.
Yeah.
When Donna's behavior gets better, I'll follow suit. That means that I'm giving Donna all the control over me. Well, once you understand that's the dynamic you've put in place, people will reject that so quickly because people do not want to be controlled by other
Mm-mm.
people. And once they
Mm-mm.
realize that they've taken a stance that's giving away their personal agency, and they're putting responsibility for fixing things into the hands of people that they have no control over and maybe marginally influence when they could have all the control in the world over their own behavior and changing things from within. It's an easy sell. And that's the whole point of Show Up Positive. It's why readers love the book. I mean, not only for the writing and the little mini lessons that are, that you just walk through, but it is this idea of hope packaged in personal agency. And it was something that people needed to be reminded of, and it's still my mission to keep reminding, because now we have all of these big corporation leaders who are trying to drag us backwards to what was before. And we don't need to go backwards. We need to create something new. Now is a new age. Now is a new time in the workplace. And so what I really am passionate about is making sure that we are utilizing all people, all levels of our organization to capitalize on this moment and generate the next evolution of what work is going to be like for us, instead of letting a few people who have greed and personal profitability to drive those decisions for us, because those should not be the control mechanisms, but they will be unless
Mhm.
we choose to make it different.
This makes me think of one of my very first clients was a very high level thought leader in the leadership space. And I won't mention any names, but she was up there. And she had this whole methodology that she would bring into very big companies, but only working with the C-suite. And I used to argue with her that it's got to go to every level of the company. Otherwise, it's not going to matter. And this was easily 15 years ago, you know? And we would have these debates about this that we'd hang up on each other. She has since passed away. And I didn't know this until after she passed away because she spelt my name wrong. But she uh, acknowledged me in her book for bringing this to her attention.
Wow, Donna, good for you. I'm glad that, well, I know you a little bit. So it's not surprising to me that you would, raise um, contentious
Well,
content for the betterment of all involved. But yeah, you and I, we see the world similarly. When I go into work inside of an organization, one of the things that's a precondition is that in the contract, we agree that I get access at all levels of the organization, and that we're going to do work at all levels of the organization. And yes, there is work to be done at the top, at the C-suite, at the executive level. But to your point, it is insufficient. That is not enough, and
they don't
especially in
they don't know the
today's
day-to-day
workforce.
operations of the person answering the phone or the person that's, doing whatever task needs to be done. I mean, it doesn't make sense for them to have that level of detail. So,
Right.
why would you not ask for that input?
Well, and I've been thinking about, is there a book for 24, and what is that about, and what do I want to talk about? I did release a chapter in a compilation book on culture. This is the second book, Culture Impact. And this chapter was written specifically to leaders, that says, if it is about the day-to-day interactions, culture is bubbling up from the workers every day, then what does your role become as a leader? And so I'm thinking about the next evolution of that conversation and what it might be. And what I've been reading about and studying and thinking about, Donna, is, we're women over 50, right? We're of the same age. We've come through the workplace
Yeah.
together, and we're smart. Our generation, Gen X, Gen X is very smart. Um, Yes, a dictatorship for sure, Angela. And we have created so many things that didn't exist before, people from our generation. And yet we sort of swallowed hook, line, and sinker this idea that that jobs and companies were our safety net, that was the place that we had to play the game by their rules. and that they got to sort of dictate the terms and conditions. And but we swallowed hook, line, and sinker this idea of professional career as security. And that is where I see the real transition in the current workforce, and especially the new workers. They're not they're not grabbing onto career. They're not putting that much power into that dynamic, and it's freeing for them. It's giving them, they're like, "Hey, I'll go gig and make enough money to pay my bills and do whatever." And they are doing that. They're starting their own businesses. They're doing their side hustles. It wasn't that we weren't hard workers or any of that, but when you look at the transition from World War II and coming out of World War II, we had all of these men coming back into the US. And basically, the political system said to companies at that time, look, you got to find work. We've got we if we're gonna stabilize economically, we got to get all these men back to work. And you've got to build your businesses. um, and so there was this parental kind of relationship that got created, right?
For sure.
You come join us and we'll take care of you, and we'll be family together. And
Yeah.
so the
And then you'll get a watch and
implication,
then you'll die.
right? And but you'll have benefit. My dad was told, you will have healthcare coverage for until the day you die. Well, they just took his healthcare coverage away last year. Right? But that's what he was promised when he was
Mhm.
hired. You'll have a place, you can retire from here. And so that mental model of employer as the safe port in the storm of life that's going to carry you through and protect you.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we all fed that myth even when it wasn't really serving us any longer. We still were, we had that mental model and we couldn't break free of that until the pandemic proved that you don't have to be sitting next to your coworker, that you don't have to be heads down doing nothing but thinking about your job for 8 straight
Yeah.
hours to be good at what you do. Like all of these myths that were structured into how work happens were
Yeah.
debunked. And we're crazy if we don't lean into that debunking and start re-envisioning something new that could be true.
Yeah, here's Lee adding in about her daughter is stuck is at 33 years old in that cycle. And, I would love to add something to that because I worked for law firms for 27 years, and they were the master of that. And the law
Yeah.
firm that I worked at was, it's been around about 165 years now. And I felt like I was part of something bigger than me. We actually called it the mothership. That's what we called it. And, we got everything from the mothership. Like when I bought my first piece of real estate at 32 years old, I didn't celebrate myself. I celebrated that, oh, I couldn't have done this without the mothership. When I would buy myself a car,
Oh.
I my 850 credit score, it was all the mothership. And even when I was looking to leave, my mother, my real mother, was like, "What are you doing? You can't do that. You have to stay there. The law firm will take care of you." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's not taking care of me because I'm leaving my child with strangers." I'm not okay with that. And, but it was a really hard pull, and when I quit, it was a good 2 years of me looking over my shoulder, like, if I was out during the day, "Oh, could I be out? It's day the sun is out. Could I be out, like, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon?" But I had this so deeply implanted inside of me because people that are our age, particularly women who are our age, we were the first generation of kids raised by liberated women.
Right.
So
Yes.
they were our mothers were raised, you could be a wife, a secretary, a nurse, or a teacher, except for, a rare case, but I mean, that's what they were raised to be. So, that's what they were telling us when we were 4 and 5 and 6 years old. Those were the outfits our Barbies had, I mean, now they could be
Well,
astronauts, but we didn't have that.
I can tell you coming through high school in the mid-80s in West Virginia, those were still mostly what the, guidance counselor guidance was to girls at that
Yeah,
time in my school system. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, even I grew up in New York, but it was the same thing, it was find a husband. I was like, "I don't want a husband. I'm 59. I still don't want a husband."
Well, I have this new, I'm a speaker, that's one of the things that I do. I do the speaking for conferences and for, companies, corporations for their private events and stuff, and I have this new, talk. I'm still kind of working out the exact title for it, but I'll give you the kind of the highlight idea behind it, which is co-creation, not colonization.
Ooh,
And, the idea is that, when you think about the employee experience you're creating in your business, are you inviting people in and colonizing them? Or are you inviting them in and allowing them to bring their full self, to be who they are? And we are creating this culture mashup that, it doesn't require us to all look and sound exactly the same, but really allows each person to bring what's distinctively true about what they have as gifts to bring into the organization, which I don't think can happen in colonization, but I do feel like we've been operating under the colonization model. And you see that all the time, the whole thing about FANG. And if you were going to get hired at Apple or Amazon or Google or wherever, that you sort of, you know, there was a way that we are in this company and you have to match to that or you can't be here. I don't know that that's the healthiest for
no,
individuals. I don't think
no,
it's good for mental health and well-being. And
yeah,
when you start reading, people are writing their tell-all books now coming out of Google. And I just read one, I can't remember her name. It was fabulous. Somebody coming out of Amazon. You would love it. I need to share it with you, Don, if you haven't found that book yet.
no, I haven't.
So good. But it's not, yeah, I mean, it's not good for, for people's health and well-being, and therefore, long term, it's not gonna be good for your organization's
No,
health and well-being.
no, because you're not allowing people to, do what they do best. When people
Yes.
are, like, working in their zone of genius, there's no stopping them, and then they're gonna give more, they're gonna contribute, they're gonna care, and I think caring is something that's lacking in so many places, and, like, when people ask me, "What makes you different than other people?" That's what I always say, "I just care more," and, interpret that the way you want. Um,
Yeah, I love that, Yvonne. Eh, I not so much the women who were the greatest generation in my family, but my mother and my aunts, they were all working women. And they all said to me, "Don't ever be reliant upon a man for anything. You
mhm,
are smart, you are capable, you make sure that you are positioned so that you can use your gifts and your capabilities to create what you want in your life and not just to sacrifice that to this." So we are evolving, and it's so to me that's what is so exciting about this new generation in the workforce and the way they're reshaping our thoughts and our conversation, because it is the next evolution, and I don't want to fight it. I want to celebrate it.
yeah, I'm with you 100%. 100%. I could see the difference in my son, and I'm sure you see it in your children as well. Like, he has boundaries that are ironclad, and sometimes I think he's just being stubborn, but he's really not.
Right.
He's really not. He's honoring himself.
Yeah, Lee, I would love to meet your daughter's employer organization. Sounds like she works in the kind of company that I love to serve. It's very common in especially in younger organizations and more startup mode. But I see this. I've had two female clients that have been personal coaching clients in the last year that came to me specifically because they are in that 40 one was 40, um, in the 40 age group, and the other one was in the 50 age group. And they were doing jobs, and I used to work in HR, so I know what I'm talking about looking at role descriptions and what constitutes a job. And they were in the same thing where they were doing jobs that were this mishmash of a huge buckets of responsibility that should have clearly been, in one case, a director level role, in the other case, should have been a VP level role. And they were not given the title nor the pay commensurate with the level of responsibility that they had. And when they were going, they came for coaching because they were going to advocate for themselves and for what they wanted and the position and the leveling and all of the titling and the pay and all of the things. What they were told is, well, you're not perfect enough yet. You need to fix these things, as if every man that was beside them getting titles and pay had perfected all of their imperfections. It was extremely frustrating, but it is there is this place that many companies and organizations struggle with in this transition from this startup where everybody just jumps in, and it's part of the fun of the startup, right? Everybody's jumping in, throwing in, bringing their talents and their gifts, and we're just figuring out how to make those works. And there's not this need for a lot of structure because we're just figuring a lot of things out, and we gotta be agile. But you reach this place where you start to burn out your people because you can't ask them to run a marathon at a sprinter's pace. And so you get caught in this place. It sounds like that your daughter is in, Lee, and I'm sorry to hear that. And I hope that she is getting. I can give you, if you want to connect with me offline. I've got another colleague of mine, Dee Powers, who is amazing at helping people understand the disempowering language that they are using when they're trying to advocate for themselves and how to fix those things. But yes, I mean, people don't sometimes organizations and leaders know they're taking advantage of people. A lot of times I think that they are so self-absorbed they just don't even see it. And it takes an HR professional, an outside consultant like me. It takes the employees advocating and saying, I am unwilling to continue, and being willing to walk away. At some point, you have to be willing to walk away. But the downside of that, one of my clients, I just had to say to her straight up, like, yes, you are under leveled. You have a lot of responsibility. She couldn't create span breaker roles because she was only a senior manager. So there were no management titles, not enough titles underneath of her to create structure around her. And so she was just caught with this, she had like 15 direct reports, which is crazy. Nobody can effectively manage that many people. And she needed to start organizing all of these different functions in contribution buckets of people. She needed them organized and somebody leading each of those. And, being able to tease out the differences and recognize this is what I really love. But what I had to say to her is, one of the things, if you change companies, you have to realize is you will probably not move into a role where you have the freedom to have your finger in so many pies. And you're probably going to have to pick a more narrow set. So you need to start getting your mind around that and figuring out what that's going to be. We stick it out in companies that aren't serving our needs. that are not creating good wellness for us, because it's easier to dance with the devil you know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so now
And
we've kinda gone over, but I didn't wanna stop you because it's such a good
oh,
conversation. But as we're winding up, can we just, maybe you can share, like, an example of a positive practice that, whether you're working in a company or working, have your own business or whatever you might be doing, you can incorporate that into what you're doing to, bring awareness to the way you're being part of a positive culture.
absolutely. So the show up positive practices are super simple because there's no wrong one to do. What I want you to do is I want you to think about what experience you've had in your work life, in your day-to-day interactions with others on your team that really filled your cup, that made the day better. And then just start practicing whatever that is. Now, here are some simple, easy ones that anyone can do. One is just smile and welcome people. When you walk into a room, when you pass people in the hallway, when somebody comes or goes, just acknowledge that person with a greeting or a goodbye. Like that's a very simple way to just connect with people. Express gratitude and appreciation. Just even if it's something like, you know what, Donna, you really heard what I had to say, and I just needed to be heard today. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me today. I really appreciate that. It can be something that basic. They don't have to do so. It's not transactional always, right? But simple expressions of gratitude and thanks. The third one is just offer help. Just in the smallest of ways, offer help. These are things that used to be common practices that people get out of the habit. We fall out of the habit of doing. And we just want to reconstitute those habits. If you want more ideas, the back of Show Up Positive has 50. You can watch me. I go live every Monday on LinkedIn and on Facebook and on YouTube. And I will give you a word for the week. This week, our word is sparkle. And we're thinking about the sparkliness of Christmas and what that feels like and means. And then how would we bring that same feeling into our interactions with other people at work this week? Whatever sparkle elicits for you, it doesn't have to be the same as what it is for me. So it is about intention. There is just about the intention of I want to feel and experience more positivity. And so therefore I am going to generate it and then it's going to come back to me. Because I guarantee you, when you smile at somebody, when you start greeting them in the hallway and saying hello, or when you start offering a helping hand, that's going to turn around and come right back to you. Plus, just doing it gives you your own self satisfaction of having done that, that is going to brighten your day.
Yeah, you feel it internally.
Yeah, 100%. Like if you're having a really bad day, the best thing that you can do is to just think of somebody that you could write a note of gratitude to, and just go to a post-it note, grab a piece of paper, grab your phone and text it. That works too. Just take a few minutes and don't just do the brief thank you, like do the very specific thank you to somebody. And when you do that, you're going to relive that moment. You're going to visualize it in your mind. You're going to experience all the good feelings of that. And so that is going to lift you up. And at the same time, when that person receives it and reads it, it's going to lift them up too.
Yes, and there is even scientific data that backs that.
Yes, there is tons of scientific data that backs that up. Look, it's not about the misconstruction. Positivity has gotten a bad rap. It's been wrapped up in this idea of toxic positivity, which is based on this idea that you just pretend. If you just pretend things are going to be okay, if you just swallow down all of your negative feelings, showing up positive doesn't mean that you never feel negative.
No.
Negativity is a part of life. Bad feelings are information. But it's the difference between getting stuck in that and allowing that negativity to define your life. What Show Up Positive says is simply, I'm going to intentionally cultivate enough positive interactions and exchanges in my life every day that they can't be drowned out by the negative things that come my way.
Yes.
Thank you,
That's a
Donna.
great way to end that. Okay,
It's my
so,
mission. It's my mission in life.
um, I loved every single word that you said, and I think the audience did too. We had some great interaction.
Yes,
If you're
thank
listening,
you, Lee,
yeah,
for coming back. I'm sorry your internet dropped.
yeah, definitely you guys should connect for sure. And you can reach and learn more about Rita at her website, igniteextraordinary.com. And she's also really active on LinkedIn, so follow her there as well. And if you're watching on the replay, you know, add comments, tag us, we'll come back, we'll respond. And we will be back next week with another interview and a panel on Thursday. So thank you. And thank you, Rita. And I really
Yay,
appreciate you
Lee.
sharing your
Thank you.
wisdom.
Thank you for Yes, Lee, thank you for saying you'll reach out. I appreciate that. I love to connect with other people that want to move the world. So if you are a world changer, let's connect.
Well, we've got a lot of them around here. Thanks again and have a great week, everybody. We'll be back next week.